Ashwood smelled like regret at dawn. Officer Deni Rourke adjusted the dull beam of his shoulder flashlight as he moved slowly down the alley behind the Pine Rest Inn, a crumbling eyesore where people came to vanish. The air was thick with a clinging blend of scorched fryer oil from the 24-hour diner down the block, melting rubber from a tire shop, and that nauseatingly sweet odor of trash broiling in the July heat of eastern Pennsylvania. His boots squelched into something soft. A rat. Dead. But Deni didn't break stride. 12 years on Ashwood's force had numbed him to most alleyway horrors. Until now. A sound. Not the scrape of a shifting dumpster. Not the distant howl of a stray. Something small. Raw. A tight, broken sound. Half sob, half silence. He switched off his flashlight and stood still, ears straining. There it was again. Quieter now. Like someone trying not to cry. He unholstered his sidearm. A dumpster loomed just ahead, rust clinging to its corners like rot. He approached slowly. That tension, the kind only cops and soldiers know, settled into his chest. Then he saw them, two tiny fingers, white against the orange rust of the dumpster lip. "Hey," Deni called gently, stepping forward. The lid groaned as he lifted it. Inside, curled under a faded blue sweatshirt, was a child. A little boy, no older than 5. The boy recoiled, pulling into himself like a frightened animal. Big, dark eyes brimmed with panic. His bottom lip was split. Finger-shaped bruises ringed his forearms. And when he screamed, Deni caught a flash of gum where a tooth should have been. "Please, don't take me back to him. I was good, I swear." The words carved deep. Deni had heard that voice before, from his brother Liam, 20 years ago, behind a locked bedroom door. He knelt, slow and visible. "Hey, easy. My name's Officer Rourke. Look, here's my badge. You're safe now, buddy." The metal badge shimmered under the alley light. The boy whimpered. When Deni asked, "Did someone hurt you?" the boy nodded, almost imperceptibly. "Daddy says if I tell, I don't get dinner." One tear streaked through the grime on his face. Deni inched closer, jacket already in hand. The boy flinched, knocking his elbow against the metal wall of the dumpster. That's when Deni saw it. A cigarette burn, purplish and raw, on the boy's shoulder. He swallowed back bile. "Come here, little man," Deni whispered, wrapping the jacket around him. The boy smelled like ammonia and fear. "You're not going back there. Not tonight." But as he turned toward the motel, he saw movement behind a torn curtain. A shadow that vanished too quickly. Someone had been watching. They had to go. Now. He scooped the child up with practiced care, his arms tightening instinctively, protectively, the way you'd catch a bird with a broken wing. The boy was weightless, too weightless. A ghost of a child with bones like twigs and a heartbeat fluttering like a trapped moth. Deni could feel the rise and fall of shallow breaths against his chest. The boy clung to his jacket, not from trust, but out of sheer survival instinct. Like a drowning swimmer latching onto the nearest solid thing, even if they didn't know if it would float. As he moved back down the alley, every footstep felt amplified. He didn't dare look back, not at the motel windows, not at the broken curtain now stilled. Some predators don't chase, not right away. They watch, they plan, they wait until you're comfortable, until the light fades just enough. The radio on his belt crackled. "Unit 7, report." He pressed the mic. "Unit 7. I've got a child. Immediate extraction needed. Possible abuse. Location, alley behind Pine Rest Inn. One observer. Unknown threat level." A pause. Then dispatch responded. "Unit 3 en route. EMT on standby." Deni exhaled, but his grip didn't loosen. The boy, who hadn't said a word since those first whispers, shifted in his arms. His tiny fingers found Deni's collar. His face, streaked with dirt and dried tears, nestled into the officer's shoulder. It wasn't comfort. Not yet. But it was no longer terror. The walk to the patrol car felt longer than usual. Deni's boots echoed on the asphalt like accusations. Why hadn't anyone called this in? A 5-year-old hiding in a dumpster doesn't just happen. Someone saw something. Someone always sees something. But in neighborhoods like this, silence was cheaper than justice. He eased the boy into the back seat, setting him gently on the leather like he might break if disturbed. The teddy bear-shaped air freshener hanging from the rearview mirror spun slowly as he started the engine. It smelled like artificial pine and false promises. "Do you have a name?" Deni asked softly, glancing back. The boy hesitated. Then, "Noah." Deni nodded once. "That's a strong name." No response. Just a blink. But the way Noah looked at him, like he was memorizing Deni's face, just in case it was the last kind one he'd see, it did something to the cop's heart he hadn't felt in years. He turned on the lights. No siren. He didn't want to scare him more. As they pulled onto Ashwood's main drag, the morning had begun to stir. Joggers passed with earbuds in. Coffee shops blinked open. Sprinklers ticked across dry lawns. The world was waking up, blissfully unaware that a child had been rescued from hell just minutes ago. Deni glanced at Noah again. The boy was still hugging his arms tightly to his chest, still wearing fear like it was stitched into his skin. He'd seen trauma before, teenagers, battered women, even fellow officers, but there was something unshakable about seeing it in someone so small, so young. It felt obscene, like graffiti on a church wall. How many kids like him had Deni passed in his career? How many hadn't cried loud enough? He thought about his brother Liam, how he used to flinch at footsteps in the hallway, how he once slept with a pocket knife under his pillow, how Deni had told him once, at 13, just toughen up. The guilt of that moment had never fully left. He reached into the glove box, pulling out a bottle of water. He handed it to Noah, who took it but didn't drink. He just held it, tight, like another thing he might lose. The station wasn't far now. Deni radioed ahead for a trauma unit and a child services rep. He didn't know what would happen next, but he knew this. Noah wasn't going back. He turned onto the final road. The station loomed ahead, red brick, 3 stories tall, with a flag half raised from a windless night. Deni glanced at the boy one last time before parking. His voice was steady. "You did the right thing, kid." Noah blinked slowly. Then, for the first time, he spoke above a whisper. "I didn't want her to get hurt." Deni's hand tightened on the wheel. "Who?" he asked. But the boy didn't answer. He just looked out the window, at the empty sky, as if searching it for a reason to hope. At the precinct, the humming fluorescent lights cast a greenish hue across scratched linoleum and water-stained ceiling tiles. Inside a cramped interview room, Deni sat across from the boy, now swaddled in a scratchy blanket and clutching a lopsided teddy bear, donated by EMTs who gently coaxed him from the dumpster. Its missing eye and worn fur made it look as world-weary as its new owner. Classic trauma response. One paramedic had murmured. His name, they'd learned, was Noah. Deni saw the signs even before the medical report. Bruises in various stages of healing. Malnourished. A burn on the shoulder. Fear of male voices. Hypervigilance. He remembered Liam again, 12 years old, hiding frozen peas under his shirt. "Don't tell Mom. He'll say I asked for it." The memory churned hot in Deni's gut. There was something cruel about how the past echoed forward. Trauma wasn't a wound that healed. It was a fault line that cracked again with the right kind of pressure. And Noah, barely 5, had already lived through enough to shatter most grown men. The door clicked open. Sasha Ortiz, a soft-voiced social worker with deep eyes and a worn file folder, entered carrying a juice box. Her professional smile faltered when Noah pressed himself against Deni's side like a cub returning to its mother. "Okay, Noah," she began gently, placing the juice on the table. "Just a few questions, all right?" Noah gripped Deni's sleeve like it was his last lifeline. Sasha looked at Deni. He gave the smallest of nods. "Hey, champ," Deni said quietly. "Remember? Nobody's mad. We just want to help." Noah's lip trembled. Is he coming?" "My dad." Sasha visibly stiffened. "He doesn't know you're here," Deni assured. Then, barely audible, "Mommy left when it got dark. She said she'd come back. But Daddy got mad. He yelled at the walls. Then, the walls yelled back." Sasha's pen hovered midward. Deni felt the pieces slot into place. Paranoia. Psychosis. Abusive delusions. He'd seen it before. Rage cloaked in madness. "Do you know where your mommy went?" Sasha asked softly. Noah shook his head, curls flopping. The file told the rest. Mira Vanner, 28, missing 4 months. No body. No investigation. 2 domestic calls. One neighbor recalled a crash and screams, but dismissed them as TV noise. Denny's phone buzzed. Unknown caller. He stepped out into the hallway and answered. A gravelly voice rasped. Drop the case. Not your fight. Then silence. He stared through the observation glass. Noah was looking right at him, through the mirror, as if he knew. Walls don't talk, Deni thought grimly, but terrified people hear what they're taught to hear. He texted the tech team to trace the call. He already knew the truth. Prepaid burner, probably tossed in the Estland River. Inside, Noah sipped juice like it was a lifeline. His eyes never left Deni. Trust like that was dangerous. It was also sacred. The silence in that room wasn't emptiness. It was loaded, like a violin string pulled too tight, threatening to snap. Deni recognized the atmosphere, the way stillness wrapped around trauma like gauze around a wound. Every tick of the wall clock felt like a countdown to something unspoken. Across the table, Noah sat in his too big hoodie, his fingers nervously tugging at a loose thread on the bear's paw. The juice box sat half empty, straw chewed flat. He didn't blink much. Kids like Noah didn't have the luxury of blinking. They were too used to watching for danger. Sasha spoke again, this time barely above a whisper. Noah, can I ask you something else? You don't have to answer if it's too scary. The boy gave a tiny nod. Did Daddy ever say things that didn't make sense? He paused. His hand stopped moving. Then, slowly, he said Mommy was turning into a ghost, that she was watching him from the radio. A chill rippled through the room. Sasha's pen moved again, but slower now. Did he say what happened when she left? Noah bit his lip, then pressed his forehead against the bear's fur. His voice was muffled when he finally answered. He said the house was too loud. He said she wouldn't stop screaming, but the neighbors didn't hear anything. Deni clenched his jaw. The statements were fragmented, like puzzle pieces from two different boxes. But there was a dark logic underneath, a terrifying cohesion that only the broken could understand. He'd seen it before. Mental illness spiraling with unchecked aggression. People hearing voices and humming appliances. Seeing betrayal in blinking lights. It was never just one thing. It was cumulative, like mold behind drywall. It spreads quietly until the whole structure caves in. Do you think she's coming back? Sasha asked gently. Noah stared down at his shoes. She said she'd come back when it was safe. And what did safe mean to a child like this? A lock that worked? A whisper instead of a yell? A day without bruises? Deni leaned back in his chair. His mind was spinning with 1,000 possibilities, none of them good. He thought about a girl named Harper, 9 years old, who once told him that she used to sleep in the closet because closets don't have footsteps. She'd said it like it was obvious, like she was telling him where the forks go. The worst part of his job wasn't the blood or the fear, it was the normalization. The way children wore their trauma like second skin, unaware that it wasn't normal to flinch when someone raised a hand to wave. His phone buzzed again, this time a text from the tech unit. Untraceable. Number disconnected immediately after the call. Likely burner. Working theory. Intimidation attempt. Of course it was. The message wasn't meant to be subtle. It was a leash tug, just enough to warn him. He returned to the interview room and crouched beside Noah. I promise you something, okay? He said. No matter what happens, I'm going to make sure you're safe. I know people say that a lot, but I mean it. Noah blinked, expression unreadable. But his fingers reached again, this time not to grip Deni's sleeve, but to hand him something. A crumpled drawing. 2 stick figures. One tall with a rectangle for a badge. One small with a teddy bear. Both standing under a sun with too many rays, like a child's idea of heaven. Noah didn't speak. He didn't need to. The meaning was clear. He was trying to believe. The next morning, Deni stood with Officer Jules Tran outside Maddox Auto Services, a decaying garage on the industrial edge of Ashwood. The building leaned like it was tired of its own secrets. Rusted signage creaked overhead. The air stank of scorched oil, hot steel, and antifreeze. The sun hadn't fully risen yet. A dusky orange glow hovered over the horizon like it couldn't quite commit to being morning. Fog clung to the ground like the town's shame, thin tendrils curling around discarded cans and cigarette butts along the fence line. Deni adjusted his badge. Jules checked her sidearm, eyes never stopping their sweep. According to Myra's last known call, She was here the night she disappeared, Deni murmured. Troy Maddox owns the place, Jules said. Eli's childhood friend. Priors for stolen parts. Nothing violent. On paper. On paper. Funny how innocence always looks cleaner on the record than in real life. You couldn't document the way some men stared too long. The way they said your name like it was a threat. You couldn't fingerprint malice when it wore the face of a smile. Inside, the clang of a wrench hitting concrete startled them. A thick-chested man with faded tattoos emerged from beneath a car lift, wiping greasy hands on a filthy rag. Officers, what's the story? His voice was gravel, laced with caution. His eyes darted, back corner, then the rear office door. We're asking about Mira Vanner, Deni said, carefully casual. You see her lately? Not since maybe March. She came by sometimes. Didn't say much. The rag twisted harder in his grip. Deni noticed the twitch in Troy's jaw. Jules stepped forward. You mind if we take a look around? Troy raised a brow. You got a warrant? Not if we believe there's an imminent threat, Deni countered calmly. A beat of silence. Then Troy gave a brittle laugh and stepped aside. Knock yourselves out. The sarcasm dripped, but he didn't stop them. That said more than words. The shop felt like a tomb disguised as a workspace. Flickering overhead lights buzzed against the hum of a hydraulic lift. Stains littered the concrete, some the color of rust, others deeper, more sinister. Half-dismantled engines sat like carcasses on tables, their insides splayed out in metallic entrails. There was a thickness in the air, not just from fumes, but something unseen. A tension, a hush. While Jules scanned the back wall, Deni crouched near the hydraulic lift. Dark patches stained the concrete, viscous, reddish-brown. Could have been oil, could have been worse. He pretended to tie his shoe, ran 2 fingers over the stain. The surface was unnaturally smooth, cleaned, scrubbed. Recently, not even the toughest grease monkey cleaned like that. Not unless there was something to hide. They were close. Deni, Jules called from outside. She knelt beside a patch of weeds near the fence line. Something was buried beneath the dirt. He jogged over. It was a cell phone. Cracked, shattered screen. On the back, a single daisy sticker, half peeled. Deni felt his throat tighten. Noah had drawn that exact flower while clutching his bear. Mommy had flowers on her phone. The sticker had faded under sun and rain, but the shape was unmistakable. This was no longer a missing person case. This was proof. She hadn't run. She hadn't abandoned her son. She had never even left town. The next day, the sterile halls of the Ashwood Forensic Lab were abuzz of printers, murmuring texts, and faint coffee breath. The walls were white, but the stories they told were blood-stained. Through the observation glass, Deni watched the lead analyst click through screens. Data lit up in blues and reds. Blood samples from Maddox's shop match Mira Vanner's DNA, the text said, adjusting his glasses. There's too much blood for it to have been a minor injury. It's enough, Jules said grimly. Time to move on, Eli. But Deni's thoughts were elsewhere. Earlier that morning, Noah had drawn again. A black house, red scribbled flames, a stick figure with XS for eyes. Daddy said Mommy burned, Noah whispered. But I didn't see fire. He had crumpled the page, eyes empty. Trauma didn't always leave bruises. Sometimes, it left crayons telling stories adults were too afraid to say aloud. Deni had seen kids draw monsters with Dad's eyes. He'd watched a 6-year-old color her mom blue, because blue is the color you turn when you stop moving. There was a kind of eerie precision to the way trauma leaked out in art. Jules's radio crackled. Suspect spotted. Eli Vanner, 12th Street gas station. The arrest was almost insultingly mundane. Eli Vanner stood at pump 7, squeezing diesel into his pickup like he wasn't being hunted, like a man buying time, like guilt was just a rumor. But the second he saw flashing reds in his rear view, he dropped the nozzle and ran. Don't touch me, he roared. Gasoline splashed the pavement. Officers flooded in. Deni approached slowly, hands visible. Eli, it's over. We know. For a heartbeat, Eli sagged. His shoulders dipped. His hand twitched. He looked almost relieved. Then he lunged. It took 3 officers to wrestle him down. He thrashed on the asphalt, screaming. She was mine. She was taking him from me. His voice cracked into something less human, less coherent. My family. They were mine. She said she'd leave, said she'd tell. I couldn't let her. They dragged him to the cruiser, spitting and sobbing. His voice echoed in Deni's ears long after they closed the squad car door. Later, under the chill of interrogation room fluorescence, Eli Vanner no longer looked like a monster. He looked like a shell. His cuffed hands shook against the table. His voice was slurred, almost childlike. She was going to report me, say I was unfit, said they'd take Noah. I had to stop her. Deni slid a glossy photo across the table, the bloodstains from the garage floor. What did you do to her, Eli? Eli wailed suddenly, slamming his forehead into the table with a thud. I didn't mean to. But the voices, they told me. They said she'd take everything. The way he rocked was almost rhythmic, like a metronome of guilt. Outside the one-way mirror, Jules stood pale-faced, holding the final forensics file. Bone fragments. Human. Female. Hidden in the soil behind Maddox's auto. One of them still wore a silver earring, dainty, with a daisy etched in the center. A gift, maybe. A Mother's Day keepsake. Something Noah might have watched her put on in the mirror. Mira Vanner hadn't run away. She had been silenced. But now, at last, they could bring her home. And maybe, just maybe, begin to give Noah back the piece of childhood that still remained unbroken. 6 months later, the playground at Glenhaven Park buzzed with laughter and the screech of sneakers on wood chips. The wind carried the faint scent of popcorn from a vendor cart. Summer was soft again. There was music, too. Someone strumming a guitar near the water fountain. Nearby, a mom juggled 2 juice boxes while a toddler shrieked with delight, face sticky with melted ice cream. Life had texture again. It had color and sound and safety. For most people, it was just Saturday. But for Deni Rourke, it was a quiet miracle. Officer Deni Rourke leaned against an old oak tree, coffee in hand, watching as Noah scrambled expertly up the jungle gym's tallest ladder. His curls flopped in the wind, cheeks rosy with effort. He looked like a different kid. The bruises were gone. His ribs no longer jutted like branches. And more than that, his eyes sparkled now, no longer wide with fear, no longer watching every shadow. His laughter didn't sound rehearsed anymore. It rang out, loud and clear and deserved. There are few sounds in the world more sacred than a child's genuine laughter after trauma. It's like hearing the earth exhale. Officer Deni, Noah shouted, leaping down the final rung and sprinting toward him. A paper flapped in his hand. Look what I made. Deni knelt, bracing himself for the impact hug. Noah slammed into him with the full force of a 6-year-old missile powered by pride and joy. The boy smelled like sunblock, bubble gum, and sweat. The holy trinity of childhood. Noah shoved the paper into his hands. 2 stick figures stood under a massive yellow sun. One wore a crude badge. The other had wild hair and held a teddy bear. Rays of gold stretched over both of them like armor. At the bottom, in crooked letters, "My friend Deni." Is that us? Deni asked, voice tight. Noah nodded, then hesitated. I'm good now, right? The question hit like a gut punch. Deni pulled him into a hug, feeling the ridge of the scar on his shoulder through his shirt. A cigarette burn now faded to a faint silver mark. You were always good, champ. That scar would never fully vanish, but it no longer owned him. It no longer wrote his story. From a bench nearby, Sasha Ortiz dabbed her eyes with a tissue. She was Noah's legal guardian now, granted custody after Eli's conviction for second-degree murder and felony child endangerment. Sasha had traded her blazers for cardigans, file folders for after-school snack routines. And yet she still carried her clipboard everywhere. Old habits and quiet trauma don't vanish overnight either. The road ahead wasn't going to be easy. Noah still had nightmares. He started school late. Group therapy would be ongoing. Some mornings he curled up under the bed instead of getting dressed. Loud noises made him freeze. Certain songs made him cry. But today was his. He had built a sandcastle. He had climbed the ladder no one thought he would touch. He had drawn sunshine with extra rays, as if he were trying to warm everyone around him. Sometimes, the smallest victories feel like revolutions. As the sun dipped lower, casting long shadows across the slide, Deni walked them to Sasha's car. Noah clung to his leg. You coming next week? The boy asked, hopeful. Wouldn't miss it, Denny said, ruffling his hair. Same time Tuesday. Maybe we get ice cream too. With sprinkles? Noah asked, squinting like it was a deal breaker. Double sprinkles. There was a time when Denny would have made that promise with doubt. Would the job pull him away? Would bureaucracy get in the way? Would the system swallow this kid like it had swallowed so many? But now, for once, he meant it without hesitation. He watched the taillights disappear down Cypress Lane, then turned toward his own car. The sunset had brushed the sky with streaks of violet and fire, colors Mira might have once described to her son on better nights. He could almost imagine her voice, soft and hopeful. That's indigo, sweetheart. And that one's called amaranth. He hoped that somewhere, somehow, she saw her boy now. Laughing, safe, healing. He hoped she knew he'd kept his promise. Denny's phone buzzed. A text from Jules. New case. Missing kid. Belmont. UN. He stood silent a moment, staring at the playground where Noah's laughter still danced on the breeze. Another boy. Another case. Another story waiting to be told, or saved. Then he typed, on my way. Because some scars never fade, but some kids get rescued. And sometimes, if you fight hard enough, light finds its way in through the cracks. As he got into his car, Denny glanced at the passenger seat. Noah's drawing lay there, the corners curled. He didn't tuck it away. He let it sit. Let it remind him of what mattered, of who mattered. He passed the diner on the corner, the one where the smell of grease once clung to trauma in the air. The same place Mira worked her last shift. The window still had her missing flyer taped inside, sun-bleached and curling at the corners, but he knew it would come down soon. Justice hadn't brought her back, but it had laid her to rest, and it had given her son something better than closure. It gave him a future. As he pulled onto Route 4, heading north toward Belmont, the dashboard lights flickered. His coffee had gone cold. His stomach grumbled. Another long night ahead. Another child in trouble. Another battle with the silence of those who'd rather not get involved. But Denny didn't feel tired. Not tonight. He was carrying the sound of Noah's laughter with him. He was carrying that crooked crayon sun. And that was more than enough. If this story moved you, don't forget to like, comment, and share to spread awareness. Tell us in the comments. What would you say to Noah if you could? Hit subscribe Wildkin Pawas Stories and turn on notifications for more real stories that matter. Let's bring more light to the dark, one story at a time.